Flordelis é feiticeira, Flordelis é uma péssima mãe.
Revogue essa sentença de...
Imagine being born and growing up in an impoverished ghetto neighborhood with the highest crime rate in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. But then God blesses you with his favor, and you become one of Brazil's most influential, powerful women, not only in the church where you command thousands of followers in more than 8 megachurches that you own, but also in politics because people believe in you. You become very rich and very famous, but at the end of the day, after struggling for over 40 years to make it where you are, you lose it all simply because you cannot afford a divorce, since it is bad for the church and anything bad for the church is bad for business, but okay with murder if you make it seem like it was a robbery gone wrong. This is the story of Flordelis Santos de Sá, at one point known as the mother of the nation, started by marrying her own son and son-in-law to a successful power couple for 21 years, only to murder him in the end. His involvement in the church all started when she was still a young child thanks to his father Francisco dos Santos, who became a very hardcore believer in Assemblies of God, ASAMD, which is one of the most powerful church organizations in the world, and for her father to become such a believer, it was because of the high crime rate that started and became part of Yajo, the third biggest favela or ghetto in Rio de Janeiro and the biggest back in the 60s, despite the poverty, poor sanitation, poor health and education facilities that this favela already faced. The massive flow of illegal substances became another very big issue, which led to very high crime rates from organized gangs claiming so many lives of innocent ones, and because of this various missionaries started evading this favela to redeem people of their wrongdoing and those who wanted change. The church became their only place of comfort and safety, and this was how Francisco dos Santos, the father to Flordelis dos Santos de Sá, became a hardcore believer of the Pentecostal church, inspiring his daughter from a very young age. Until today, when one gets baptized in the Pentecostal belief, it is the belief that one can then communicate directly with God, and this can gift the person with the power to heal others, speak in tongues, and perform spiritual miracles, which Floss grew up witnessing since her father was not only a street preacher of this gospel, but also used to organize spiritual gatherings at theirs, not to only make her father proud, but because Flordelis also got deep into this religion, she started following the footsteps of her father, like making her own spiritual gatherings in her early teens. And because she had a beautiful voice, she would most of the time lead the church choir. Things then got twisted in her life at the age of 14 when her father and brother died in a car accident, which sort of questioned her belief in the God she was serving, but later on got the strength to stand back on her feet in her belief, but this time even stronger than before, despite the fact that these were some of the toughest times she went through with her mother. So she decided to serve her God as she worked as a clerk in a bakery to help out her mother with the finance. She did so many brave things at a young age after her father passed on in the name of her God, like approaching crime gang leaders and converting them, which was a miracle because some would listen to her and do as she preached. This made news in the favela of Jho, and it sort of gave her the immunity she needed from the most dangerous criminal gangs in the region to enable her to preach the gospel in the middle of the night without being touched. Slowly by slowly, her community started giving her respect and earning more of it in. Just after she graduated from university as a teacher, she happened to fall in love with a guy whose information is hard to find on the internet, who was the father of her firstborn son, Flavio del Santos Rodriguez. And as far as information about him, things did not go well between him and Flo, so they broke up before even the baby was born. Apart from the fact that he was the guy who had diverted her from, she had a bunch of other relationships which also failed, and Simone dos Santos Rodriguez was the product. So she decided to do away with men and concentrate on her teaching for the money to raise the kids, and church for her spiritual soul, where she was part of many missionary groups. These are the days when her spiritual involvement in the church was entirely pure to serve her God, and not subjected to anything out of it. She went back deep into the ghettos to redeem more criminal gangs like before. And this time around, since the crime rate was increasingly huge, one of its outcomes was the children. It left the homeless on the streets. Being a teacher for young kids gave her an advantage that she understood them, and because of the many that had become homeless due to the massive killings caused by the high crime, Flordelis started welcoming them to her home and adopting them, though not legally, and among them was her future husband, Anderson do Carmo, who was 14 years at the moment in 1991, making a total of 8 children, including her 3 biological ones, and she was 30 years at the moment. At this point in time, Anderson was dating her daughter Simone dos Santos Rodriguez, despite the fact that the two were technically siblings, since she had decided to take Anderson in as her son, but she seemed not to have a problem with it, and good enough, their relationship did not last that long. even though at this point she was very famous in the ghettos of Rio de Janeiro. Her turning point to global fame and more doors to money started in 1994 when she was invited as one of the preachers at Brazil's central train station, where lives of innocent children were claimed by the war between corrupt police officials and criminal gangs due to the illegal dealings between. Because of her preaching, a woman approached her and asked her to adopt her newborn child, claiming she could not afford to take care of it. And just after this moment, since Flores agreed to adopt the child, the very same woman showed up at her doorstep with 37 more children, who included 14 infants, saying that their parents had died in gang wars. News then started spreading around on how she was then a mother of 55 children in total, which the authorities didn't take lightly. So she was called in court because none of her adoptions was done legally, rather than her saying that she did it to save these kids from dying on the streets, which according to the law is not ethical. Even though she first hid from the authorities with her children, it was the criminal gangs that helped her out. After hearing her touching story and after doing a media conference where she explained to the people her cause for saving the kids on the streets from deaths due to the central train station, where in just 3 years alone from 1988 to 1991, over 5,000 children were reported to have been killed. In that place alone, she became a hero and it helped her gain international recognition. From the fact that the authorities who were against her started supporting her, as this opened more doors of opportunities for her, including 2 businessmen who gave her a fully furnished apartment with a very big garage. She and her young boyfriend, Anderson Duke Carr, used the garage as a church, and the earnings from it enabled them to buy their own big church where they commanded over 4,500 followers. They then got married in 1998. And even though she was 16 years older than the guy, her followers had no problem. Furthermore, she later gained her title as the Mother of the Nation in 2002 when Senil invited her to her show called Planta SXA, and from then she never looked back. She tried music, though her first album didn't work out very well. A decade later, she became successful with her gospel music. They built 9 more megachurches. They commanded with thousands of followers, given her and her young husband had both become influential pastors. Their lives changed from average Brazilian to rich ones living in the gated community, since they were earning over $15,000 per month from the churches besides the church. Her title as the Mother of the Nation attracted known filmmakers, actors, and actresses from Brazil, who did a film with her free of charge called Flosbama, Palavra para Matar, meaning one word is enough to change, back in 2009, when all the earnings out of it were for her organization with the kids. Though it was not huge, she and her husband became more and more influential, which enabled her to win for Congresswoman in 2018 as the most voted woman in the history of Brazil for this position, and this made her more. Imagine all this kind of success for over 20 years, and then Floss feels like she had had enough with her young boyfriend. Her son, she married, and her son-in-law, which is okay because sometimes in life people just need something new to move on with. But then she thinks a divorce will disappoint her God, because this was the reason she gave to one of her adopted children to kill their father in their first attempts of poisoning him, though he kept surviving. In reality, she was very afraid of divorcing Anderson Duke's Carr, as it is an abomination in their church, and it would be very bad for their church business. So her plan was to make it look like a robbery gone wrong, which would also get her more sympathy from their followers, meaning more money. After the night, Anderson Duke Carmo was killed by 30 gun.
Essa sentença de prisão sobre a minha vida.
E o pior hoje para mim seria ir